I guess we can start with some introductions of who we are. My name is Arzbaecher. I am the short-terms program manager here at Greenheart Travel. I do teach in a homestay, teen summer language camp, volunteer abroad, and high school abroad. So lots of homestay programs, lots of options for people to really live like a local.
Hi guys, I am Pavich and I'm the director of high school and short-term programs. And I have lots of experience of studying teens abroad who end up living with host families. So I'm excited to talk about that today, and let's get started.
All right, great. So one of the first things that we kind of wanted to talk about is just a little bit about our process in general. You know, going abroad and living with a host family is such a big decision, and so I'm sure a lot of you have questions about how we find our host families and how we match you with them. So the location itself is typically going to be chosen, depending on the host family availability. For most of our countries, families are located really kind of in every corner of the country. I've seen people placed in one corner of France, the opposite corner of France, all over Italy, everywhere throughout the country. So it really depends on when during the year the host family is available. And for all of our host families across all of our various programs, we do a pretty thorough vetting process to really ensure that you can feel safe and secure with your host families. So we do a screening program, so they fill out an application form in the same way that you do. They do a criminal background check for all adult members of the host family. We do an in-person interview with our local coordinator staff based in the various countries. And then we also are going to do a home inspection and verify references for the members of the host family. And, this is really something that we do to really ensure that you're going to be in a comfortable environment where you know it's going to be safe and secure. And we really match based on living preferences. We ask you questions during the application process in order to kind of find out more about you. What's your personality? What are your hobbies? What are you interested in? As well as more accommodation-based preferences. Smoking, non-smoking, pets, no pets, kids, older kids, younger kids, like all sorts of different questions like that. And they are just preferences. We don't guarantee any of those are going to necessarily be met. But we do try our best to find a family that you're going to be compatible with. But for us, it's really important that you're placed with someone that you're going to be a good fit with, which is why we prioritize a good match over the location itself. So you can't choose, I want to be placed in downtown Paris next to the Eiffel Tower. Like, we don't really allow that. And you don't necessarily look through a packet of 5 different families and choose your favorite. We facilitate that whole matching process on our end, and then we'll present you with your host family placement so that you can talk to them prior to your arrival. For most of our programs, we typically get them a few weeks, maybe even a few months before you leave.
The foundation of a solid exchange is a great host family student match. So that's why we ask you a lot of questions on the application so we can get to know you as thoroughly as possible and then match those with the available host families in the host country. So we do a lot of preparation beforehand to get to know you, get to know the host families, so we can make that match as solid as possible, which is why we don't take the geographical preferences into account, because really it's much more important to have a best you host family match.
Exactly. And our families, I don't know, I've seen so many different configurations of families. They come in all different shapes and sizes, just in the same way they do in your home country. We see families that have lots of kids. We see families that have no kids. We have families with older kids, younger kids. We've seen families where it's one parent or, a retiree or a young couple that hasn't had kids yet. They really do come in so many different shapes and sizes. So it's important to be open-minded and flexible about the demographics of your family, because not every family is the traditional nuclear family that you might think of, and that doesn't mean it's going to be a bad experience. In fact, I think that it leads to a more nuanced and empathetic understanding of what life is like in other countries.
So what will it be like? I get this question a lot, and I'm sure that you do too.
Yeah, for sure.
So basically, you are going to be going to the host country, and you're going to be living as a participating member of that family. So if they're sitting around and watching TV, then get in that living room and watch TV with them. And if it's a television show that you really don't like, no big deal. Just sit in the living room and read a book, or do a crossword puzzle, or do something, just as long as you're spending time with them. That is really the important thing. So when you are living with a host family, that's the best way to get to know your community, the culture, the country. So really take advantage of the fact that you're living with someone who is from that country by spending time with them. If you go to your bedroom and lock the door and be on your computer, that's what your experience is going to be like. But if you go to that living room and just sit down and hang out with the host family and help them make dinner and go take walks with them, that's what your experience is going to be like. So really think about, okay, what do I want to remember when I come back home? And if it's sitting in a room and, you know, being on your computer, then you probably shouldn't go in the first place. But if it's interacting and participating with the host family, then that's the experience that you're going to get out of it.
And, you know, for so many people, you might not know the language very well when you first get there, and you're going to do the wrong thing or say soup instead of soap, and, you know, it happens. Like, those awkward incidences are all opportunities to learn and get a little bit better at your language, a little bit better at communicating. And so it shouldn't be something that you necessarily feel nervous about, but maybe something that you should feel excited about, because it really is an opportunity to improve yourself, improve your communication across totally different cultures that you're not used to. Oh, that's weird.
Okay, it's a little pixelated, but you know, it's kind of artistic. So before you leave, you will get your host placement. And we always encourage the participant to reach out to the host family to make that first contact. So send them an email just to introduce yourself and say, hey, it's me, I'm coming, I'm so excited to meet you. And then schedule a time to chat. Whether it be on FaceTime, on Skype, on WhatsApp, anything. But definitely break the ice before you get there, because it makes it a lot easier to meet them and it's not so nerve-wracking when you get there. Also, when you first get there, you may want to know, okay, so what are some routines here? So sit down with your host family that first day and just ask them about, okay, so what's the shower schedule like? When do people get ready? When do you guys eat breakfast? Do you expect me to help out with dinner? You know, there are some questions that you could think about before you get there and jot them down. So when you meet them, you could ask them, especially if you try to write them in the host country language, that would be best. But otherwise, you can just kind of cobble it together with English and the host country language, and you'll get your point across. But eventually, you just kind of do as the Romans do and just see how they live and then just jump in it.
So one of the really good ways to kind of build a rapport right off the bat is to bring a host family gift. And for some countries, you know, multiple gifts over the course of the program is more customary. But for most countries, you know, bringing one for the beginning and end of the trip is a good idea. So one of the best ways to kind of express that you care for them is to make it meaningful and make it a gift that's personal and represents you and where you're from and any cultural heritage or background that you might want to share with them. One funny story that I have, I lived with a host family when I was in middle school, and it was my first trip abroad, and I went to Australia, and this was in like the early 2000s. So no smartphones, I didn't have access to a whole Google Drive of photos, and so I printed off just pictures of things that I thought were totally boring, like a car, my house, my school, my siblings, just kind of what my life looked like, and I put them into a photo album and gave them to my host family, and they loved it, and it was awesome. And then speed up 15 years down the road, they actually found me on Facebook and said, we still have that photo album that you gave us, and we think it's such a cool capsule into your life. Like, do you want to see those photos? And I was like, sure. And so they scanned them all to me and sent them to me via email, and it was kind of a weird, I don't know, decade collide or something. But it was, you know, it really showed me that it was something that was meaningful and memorable for them. And I think that that's the type of thing that you should shoot for with your host family gifts. So, you know, bringing a souvenir from your area, bringing a mascot, you know, a stuffed animal with the mascot from your school, or a notebook with your school's logo on it. I have a lot of Canadians who are like, I'm going to bring maple syrup and Canada pins, and, you know, different things like that that can be inexpensive and cheap. It doesn't need to be anything super fancy, but brings a little bit of your home to your host family.
They're really small tokens of appreciation, and when you get there, they're another great way to kind of break the ice. Because when you first meet these people, it's not natural to just immediately feel part of their family. You have to, like we were saying before, build that rapport. And giving them a host family gift obviously is a nice way to say thank you, but also gives you something right off the bat to talk about. And again, this is another way that you can use your language by figuring out, even if you just know how to say cup or shirt or picture, something very, very simple in the host country's language, and then say it. That way the host family can see, okay, they're putting forth the effort, they appreciate it, and right off the bat, you guys are in a good place.
Okay, well, you want to tackle this one or shall I?
Go for it.
Okay, so a big part of living with a host family is getting out of your comfort zone. You know, you're very much going to be kind of like airlifted into their life and their routines and their relationships. And so those can be tough to navigate sometimes, but what's important is that you're constantly pushing yourself and trying to get out of your comfort zone. So we alluded to this a little bit before, but I can't overstate this enough. Get out of your room. Don't sit on Netflix and Snapchat and all the other things that you're doing on your phone, because it's really a barrier. It's preventing you from getting connected with your host family. So be in the common rooms, always, be engaging with them. If they invite you to do something with them or have some plans on the weekends, always, always say yes. Because this is really your opportunity to see what their life looks like, try something new, and learn a little bit about them, learn a little bit about what they're interested in. And I think some of those random things, going to a street festival or a family barbecue. One time I had a participant who was in her host sister's wedding. Like, there's so many cool instances that come about when you say yes and when you try something new and push yourself out of your comfort zone. Get used to not really having a ton of alone time. For Americans especially, this can be really a big challenge going into the program because maybe you live alone or you have your own room and you're used to having private time where you can just decompress a little bit. I think a lot of us connect with that and really feel like being surrounded by people all the time can be a little bit exhausting. But when you're abroad, your time goes by so fast, and so your host family wants to capitalize on that in the same way that you do. They're going to be spending a lot of time with you. They want to show you around. They want to have you meet their family and friends. And in countries, especially in like Central and South America, Spain, it's kind of a revolving door. You'll just all of a sudden meet all these other family members, and oh, this person's aunt and this person's cousin, and it's a lot. But that's part of the experience. That's what you're signing up for. And so if you do need to find time to be alone, make sure it's outside of the house. It's not you closing your door and sitting in your room by yourself. It's you going for a walk on your own, going for a jog, somewhere where you can kind of remove yourself from the situation so the host family isn't necessarily worried about if something's wrong with you.
Okay, so we've dedicated an entire slide to this because it's very, very, very important to respect the host family's house. They are opening up their world, they are opening up their family, they're opening up their home to you. So make sure that you're not treating it as a hotel, because that is one of the most offensive things that you can do to someone. Just imagine if you invited someone into your house and they just didn't make their bed and just left their dishes all over the place, and you wouldn't really want them there anymore. And that's exactly what you don't, that's exactly the impression that you don't want to be making. So no matter how clean you think you're being, just do another once over and think, would this be clean for me? Okay, it might be clean for me, but look around your host family's house and think, okay, does this match up with how they're keeping the rest of the house? And if the answer is no, then tidy up a little bit more. And you can also talk to your host family about, say, hey, do you want to help with the dishes? Or do you want me to sweep? Or is there anything you want me to do? Because again, that's giving back to this family that's inviting you to their home and part of their family. Another thing too is just make sure that you're keeping yourself clean as well. Sometimes we get into the travel mode and we think, today's not a shower day. Every day should be a shower day. So just remember that, because you're going to be living in their house, and again, you don't want your personal space or your personal space to be unclean. So just remember to keep clean. Keep clean, keep clean.
Can't say it enough. Okay, so what if there is an issue when I'm abroad? I don't like my family, we're not getting along, there's culture shock, any number of problems can come up. We try and anticipate as much as possible and really facilitate good matches, but sometimes things on paper just don't match with the chemistry in person in the same way it is here. So, they happen. It's part of cultural exchange, and, we're here to support you during those issues as they come up. We also have local coordinators in every country, so it's important that you reach out to them. They're kind of your first line of defense, and what's really great about them is they're native speakers of whatever language you might be in, whether it's French, Spanish, Italian, and so they can kind of function as the go-between between you and the host family, so you don't necessarily have to confront the issues head on and make it really awkward. You can help, use the local coordinator and kind of facilitate those conversations a little bit more easily. We do take issues extremely seriously, and we really try and be involved in that process and made aware of them as soon as they're happening. Because what happens a lot of times is big issues get repressed, or small issues get repressed, and then all of a sudden they explode into big issues, and all of a sudden everyone's mad and the situation can't be resolved or mediated, and everyone wants to move and no one's happy, and that's not the point we want to get to. We want you to be kind of communicating with us as small little red flags or awkward incidences come up. Let us know, keep us in the loop, because we do resolve the issues on a case-by-case basis. There isn't necessarily a black and white way we can solve every problem, because with programs like this, it's not black and white all the time, you know, there are two sides to every story. The host family probably has a different perspective than you do, and so, you know, we need to be all kind of communicating together on how we can resolve those issues, and they are handled on a case-by-case basis. So, yeah, I don't know.
At the end of the day, just remember that everyone wants the same thing, which is a successful exchange. No one is doing this because they don't want someone to have a good time or to have someone have a good interaction between host family, school, student, participant. Everybody wants a successful exchange, so we're all in this together and we're all working towards the same end goal. So just keep that in mind. And one small caveat is also to use common sense. So if you don't know how to use the hot water, don't reach out to us for that. Just talk to your host family directly about things like that.
Where do I store my clothes? That was my favorite one, I think. There was like an armoire in their room, and they didn't know that that's where they were supposed to put clothes, and they emailed me about it. I was like, you can just ask your family about that.
Communication is huge when it comes to living with the host family. Even if you think it's a silly question, if you don't know the answer, it is not a silly question. So just ask and communicate.
Okay. So, we've already like fast forwarded all the way to the end of your program. You've gone abroad, you're getting ready to leave. Oh no, it's so sad. But you've developed some really good relationships. And so it's super important that you stay connected with them. We've got a few tips for ways to kind of do that. I think one of the #1 things that I see people do is they forget to take a photo with their host family. Like, or all members of the host family. Maybe you have like 1 or 2 selfies with your, you know, host sibling, but none with the parents. Make sure to have those. You're gonna wish that you did. I made that mistake more than once, and I regret it. You know, I'm sad that I don't have photos of my time with those host families, because I still remember them so fondly and the relationship that we developed. Get all of their contact information. This seems like really basic, and you probably will already have it from your placement sheet and from before you left. But if you're connected with them on social media, Skype, Facebook, all that sort of stuff, it just makes communication so much easier. And finally, this is something that I do personally that I think also really works well for this, is set little periodic reminders on your calendar to send them a quick note, send them a quick message, and just say, hi, how's it going, miss you, was thinking about you, because it's a great way to kind of stay connected with one another.
Going back to Skype, nowadays people don't really like talking on the phone. It's just not really a common mode of communication. However, especially if you're going to a country where English is not the native language, it's a really great way to keep up your language skills. And even if you're going to Australia or the UK or someplace where English is the native language, still talk to them, because it's nice to hear someone's voice every once in a while. And it's just a really nice way to stay connected. It could be on FaceTime, or it could be FaceTime without audio. It's just nice to hear that person's voice. So don't disregard it just because it's a phone call. That actually still goes a really long way in keeping in contact. And also, I have a lot of participants who come back home and then have their host brothers, host sisters, host moms come and visit them too. So you can host as well, and it doesn't have to be an official host. You can just say, you know what, come and stay with me for a couple of weeks. You've got some summer off, you know, I'd love to have you here and show you my hometown.
That's the best. I love when you see long-term relationships form from a program like this. It's so rewarding for everyone involved. It's such a good sign that it was a great match and you had a great experience, and you're continuing to foster connections around the world. So that's about all we got for you guys. We'll take the questions that we got, I guess, first from the online platform when you signed up. And then as you guys have more questions, feel free to pop those in the chat function there, and we will answer them as we go. All right, first question. Do I get to pick my host family, or am I assigned one? So you do not get to pick your host family. We basically facilitate that matching process for you, and you will be assigned a host family. We do try and give you their contact information as soon as we can, as soon as we have the placement, so that you can start building a rapport and talk to them as much as possible so you feel comfortable with the match before you arrive.
What are some good questions to ask the family regarding daily routines and schedules upon arriving and settling in? This is a great question, and it's a good idea before you even get there to jot those questions down. What I recommend is looking to see your own daily routines at home and to see, okay, all right, I get up at this time, put down, okay, what time does everyone get up usually? And a lot of the host placement forms have that information, but it's still good to verify this info. All right, so what time do I get up usually? All right, jot that question down. What time do I take a shower? Jot that question down. So just kind of see what your day-to-day routine is, and then put those things down so that when you meet your host family, you can ask them the same questions. And then remind them, hey, I'm here to learn about your culture, I'm here to become part of your family, but I'm learning. So anytime I'm doing something that's not kind of jiving with the rest of you guys, or is not really fitting into the schedule and is creating more of inconvenience, tell me. that's like it. It's okay. Just I'm learning and I need to learn. I need to know these things. So again, it goes right back to the whole communication piece. It's so important to communicate. But definitely have those list of questions already when you meet the host family, and then also tell them, is there anything else I should know right off the bat?
And if you do get feedback from them about like, hey, actually, could you be a little bit cleaner? Could you put your dishes here? Don't take it personally, or don't take it as like, oh gosh, they hate me now. I've done everything wrong and I'm never going to be able to move past this. It's easy to get wrapped up in your own head about that kind of stuff, but the reality is you're learning. You're learning. And so it's okay. Let those kind of comments just roll off. You'll learn how to do it better and you won't make that mistake next time. All right, question number 3. What are some tips for finding a happy medium between spending weekends with my host family and traveling to other cities? So this question largely is going to relate to our Teach in a Homestay program. For teen summer language camp and high school abroad, traveling on the weekends without your host family isn't really a thing that you're going to be doing. So this is really pretty program specific, so I guess I'll take this one. But in terms of the Teach in a Homestay program, you know, you are allowed to travel on the weekends. It is allowed. What I usually recommend as a good rule of thumb is about 1 to 2 weekends per month for a maximum of 1 to 2 days at a time. You don't want to be gone every single weekend. That's not a very respectful thing to do to your host family. Like, they want to spend time with you too during their free time. And they also probably have some really great suggestions of cool, under the radar type places in their nearby area that maybe you've never thought of. In terms of striking a good balance about communicating that, give them some forewarning about what you plan on doing and where you plan on going. You know, if you're going to go, let's say you're placed in southern France somewhere, and you want to go to Marseille for the weekend, or Lyon, or something like that. Tell your host family that days in advance, weeks in advance, if you have those plans, because it allows them to schedule around you too. Tell them when you're going to be gone, when you're going to come back, be in communication with them while you're there. I think a lot of host families, and this is true for all programs, feel responsible for you and feel like you're a part of their family. So you need to be cognizant of that. You don't want them sitting at home worrying about you because you haven't sent them a WhatsApp message in, 5 days and they have no idea where you are. Like, that's not okay. So you need to be cognizant of that as you're kind of making that schedule, and always be communicating with them. Is it okay if I go here for the weekend? I wanted to meet, a family friend. Is that okay? And just kind of keep them in the loop of that decision-making process before you make any final decisions.
What about religious or cultural differences between the host family and myself? Well, you're going abroad to learn and immerse yourself in the cultural differences, so that will happen because it's part of the program. So again, it's just a learning experience. So anytime something pops up that you weren't expecting or you don't really understand, I see that they do it this way, I wonder why. Ask your host family about it. Ask your new friends. Ask questions, because they might do it for, they might eat with a fork in a different way. Just, that's interesting. And don't place any judgment on it, because that's not why you're there. You're there to experience the differences and really appreciate them. And if there's something that pops up, you're like, I really don't get that, have a conversation about it in a really open and non-judgmental way, because it's all part of the experience. And you can have an open dialogue as well. And in terms of religious differences, your host family should not be proselytizing at all. So even if your host family is, say, Catholic, and you're not, and you don't want to go to church, it's fine, you don't have to. If you are, let's say, in Ireland, for instance, there's a lot of schools that are religious-based schools, but you're not having to go to church. So even if you have a religious class, just look at that as an academic exercise. So those differences, you can really look at it through that lens, and you should never feel, forced upon with anything.
All right, so we got a question here. Are we able to explore the area on our own, or are we required to be with a member of the host family at all times? So this is, again, going to vary a little bit per program. So I guess we can each speak for the various programs we manage. So if you're teaching a homestay because you're adults, it's fine if you go off on your own. That's no problem. You can definitely, explore even during the days when you're not teaching. For teen summer language camp, it's more structured, and there are free days where you do have the opportunity to do things on your own. Those are typically going to be on Sundays. But we aren't typically very comfortable with people doing that on their own, especially 14, 15, 16-year-old kids. So the host families kind of understand that their responsibility is to keep an eye on you and really supervise that. So typically you're not going to be going off on your own all that much. You might be commuting to and from school on your own, but on those free weekend days, you're typically going to be spending it with your host family doing whatever they're doing. And then for volunteer abroad, we only have host families in our Costa Rica program, but for that one, same thing, you know, teenagers are allowed to spend time with other volunteers that live in the same community as them. Going anywhere further, typically we're going to want someone supervising you. Adults are welcome to do their own thing.
For high school abroad, look at how you interact with people here in the States and say, okay, well, I have my routines here. I go to school, I have my extracurricular activities, I go home, I spend time with my family. That'll be very similar to your time in your host country. So you should not always be with your host family. That would be a little oppressive for everyone involved. But definitely keep them in the loop about if you're going out at night, you know, you should always go with somebody. If you're going out, ask them if it's okay. Again, communication is key here. But you should have your life, and you should be looking for different clubs, different activities to participate in that your host family won't necessarily be interested in or also have the same opportunities to participate in because they're not teenagers. But definitely keep them in the loop. In terms of trips and travel, you should not be traveling without your host family. That's not allowed in the high school abroad program. If it's with your school, that's another thing. Usually that's allowed just as long as your natural parents are okay.